Survival. She had a small brain, tiny bones, and wasn't even 4 feet tall. But Lucy, the Australopith, was a survivor. Many years ago, I read of a discovery that set my mind on fire. An American paleoanthropologist named Donald Johanson had discovered the bones of a woman who lived almost 3.2 million years ago, making her our earliest known ancestor. The scientific community was equally excited by the find because it proved that people walked upright long before they evolved the large brains characteristic of modern humans. This was a big deal because the most famous researchers of human evolution, Lewis and Mary Leakey, believed that we had developed our modern brains before we walked upright, but Lucy, as the new fossil was named, proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that the opposite was true. I was certainly interested in our evolution for purely intellectual reasons, but to me a more intriguing question was how Lucy and her kind Australopithecus afarensis had survived. Lucy shared her terrain with hyenas, false saber-tooths, and scimitar cats, just a few of the creatures that might have meant her harm. And predators weren't the only hazard. In May 1978, almost 4 years after Johanson discovered Lucy, some of Mary Leakey's grad students made one of the most remarkable discoveries in history. A trail of footprints created by another group of Australopiths at a place called Latoli in Tanzania, nearly 3.6 million years ago. At that time, a volcano now known as Sadiman had erupted about 10 miles away, and a cloud of fine ash had settled on the landscape. When volcanoes erupt, they shoot ash into the air and produce static electricity. Rain follows lightning. The water turned the ash into paste, like plaster, and as the people crossed the field, they left their footprints. Another eruption laid down another layer of ash. It was followed by more rain, which hardened and preserved the footprints. The prints show one large Australopith, a smaller one, and a third who walked in the footprints of the first. The smaller set of prints was made in such a way as to suggest that the person might have been carrying something. Because of what we know about how humans and other apes behave, a number of researchers have imagined that this was a small family. Father, mother carrying a child, and possibly another child walking. When I heard about this discovery, I tried to imagine the mother holding her baby as they fled the eruption, beset on all sides by beasts much larger and far better equipped to deal out death than she. I wondered what the Latoli woman would have been thinking, her heart beating fast, her quickening steps. She had a small brain, but she and Lucy must have been very smart enough in any case to evade beasts and flee from erupting volcanoes. And that led me to wonder how we, with our big brains in our modern world, would survive in such conditions. We can get a glimpse of how we do in such a situation by recalling the eruption of Mount St. Helens. The eruption, which began in May 1980, was a spectacle that drew people rather than repelled them. People did not flee. In fact, they flocked to the area to watch the fireworks. The county sheriff tried to warn them of the danger, but entrepreneurs sold maps to show how to avoid roadblocks and use logging roads to get up the mountain. The tourist season was in full swing, and people simply couldn't conceive of the events that were about to occur. Even though that information was readily available, experts were quoted on the news, talking about it almost every day. Where Lucy would have clearly understood the need to flee from smoke and fire and the trembling earth, the people at Mount St. Helens stood around to watch. Some even camped on the highway bridges that spanned the valley floors, drinking beer from coolers and eating picnic lunches. At 8:32 a.m. on May 18th, an earthquake measuring 5.1 on the Richter scale peeled away the north flank of the mountain, releasing the largest landslide in recorded history. More than half a cubic mile of material moved at 300 miles an hour, burying some 212 square miles to a depth of 120 feet in places. As happened with Sadiman, volcanic ash produced static electricity, and rain and ash began to fall, some 520 million tons of it, spreading over 22,000 square miles. Of the 57 people killed in the blast, 23 were never found. I was recently in Seattle and saw a small item in the newspaper announcing that Lucy was in town. I was astonished. The government of Ethiopia, where she was found, had locked her bones away in a specially constructed vault in the paleoanthropology laboratories of the National Museum of Ethiopia in Addis Ababa. They weren't on display. To see them, one had to go there and get special permission. But a deal had been struck by the Houston Museum of Natural Science, where Lucy's bones first appeared in August 2007. Now they were here, just blocks from where I sat, having my morning coffee. I raced over to the Pacific Science Center and was shown into the gallery, where an excellent exhibition had been set up to introduce Ethiopia and human evolution. On the top floor of the exhibit, I came to Lucy's bones. I had seen photographs, of course, but nothing could have prepared me for the sight. The amazing jaw with so many teeth still intact, teeth that were not pointed like a chimpanzee's, but just like our own. Some of her rib bones were as thin as cocktail straws. Her arms were not much thicker than pencils. Lucy stood only 3.5 feet tall and was probably in her 20s when she died. She seemed so fragile, yet she had stood up to so much. She went barefoot and had no clothes, but she was a shrewd calculator and had a powerful throwing arm. And through sheer cunning, her people had survived for 1 million years over thousands of miles of territory, longer than any other hominid before or since. Modern humans have been around for 200,000 years at most. Casts of the Laetoli footprints were also displayed at the museum, tracing the remarkable record of our ancestors' wisdom and durability. Seeing Lucy and the Laetoli family in the flesh, so to speak, made me contemplate both our survival as individuals in extreme circumstances and our survival as a species. Nature finds it an easy trick to strip us of all we've earned. In Seattle, I was a short drive from monumental wilderness areas where a small misstep could erase 3 million years of evolution and leave me at the mercy of the same sorts of hazards that Lucy faced. It made me wonder if we had stayed in our comfortable world, a world that Lucy would have welcomed too long. It made me question whether all this luxury could last, and it made me ask how we'd appear to someone looking back at us from 3 million years in the future. Would they see a wise and hardy creature who endured against all odds? Or would they see one who, possessed of astonishing intellectual capacity, had squandered these gifts in a few 100,000 years and then vanished? No one wants to go back to Lucy's way of life, and yet, in subtle ways, our very success in overcoming Lucy's biggest challenges has sown the seeds of our own undoing. With brains 3 times the size of hers, I wonder if we can do as well and survive for 1 million years. So much of who we are today depends on where we came from. We are the legacy that Lucy left behind. While her bones are on this rare tour, it would be good to go and contemplate them before they return to that vault in Ethiopia.